On a serious note, Governor Brown this week closed a loophole in state law which allowed some ivory products to be sold here in California. Now, here's how it worked. Under the old law, ivory products could be bought and sold as long as the ivory was obtained before 1977. Not anymore. As of January 1st, it will be illegal to buy or sell virtually all ivory that comes from elephant tusks or rhino horn. There's some exceptions that probably you don't have a problem with that exists with things over 100 years old, instruments, etc. The changes in law is being welcomed by wildlife conservation groups such as WorldAid, whose executive director Peter Knights joins us alongside with actress Maggie Q, a longtime champion of animal rights. And indeed, you just literally flew in this morning.
Yes, just got in this morning. WorldAid's doing a big fundraiser tomorrow night here in Los Angeles for the first time in Los Angeles, and it's going to be such an exciting night because we're going to be creating awareness in a city that you guys haven't really been in before.
We haven't, and we use a lot of actors and athletes and prominent business people in our messaging. And what we try and do, which is different from most conservation organizations, we try and stop the demand for these products. So we're working in China with people like Yao Ming and Jackie Chan and Maggie to educate people about what's happening to elephants and not to buy ivory.
And I think until you've seen, I watched a documentary on this earlier this year, until you see what happens to these animals just to get this much material, it is heartbreaking, right?
I just got back from Kenya. I was actually working with the elephants for 2 weeks in Tsavo National Park, and I was spending time with some of these wild elephants and touching their tusks and thinking how sad it was that such a small part of them has become their downfall.
All right, Peter, first of all, here in California, how problematical is it here, or is it really more in other nations?
Well, I think we think it's not going on here, but actually the United States is one of the largest consumers of illegal wildlife products. And it's not just things like ivory, it's things like turtle eggs, it's things like caviar, it's very often illegal. Shark fin soup, which we banned a couple of years ago, which has been very successful.
Become a big story here, by the way, of what happened here locally. Do you feel at this point that you've always been fighting an uphill battle, that maybe the hill isn't as high as it was?
There's been some major breakthroughs, and we're going to celebrate on Saturday. President Xi of China and President Obama announced that China and the United States are both banning ivory, and that's two of the biggest markets in the world. So that's been great progress.
For people watching me saying, I got so many problems, why should I care about this?
The thing is, we're talking about species extinction, and we have species on the planet for a reason. Another thing that WorldAid fights for, are sharks and different predators. If we get rid of wolves are disappearing, sharks are disappearing, we're killing our predators. If our ecosystems, elephants, for example,
how many a day go? There was I read
there's an elephant killed every 15 minutes.
96 a day.
96 elephants.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It's horrifying.
And these systems will collapse. If you take out pieces, it's like a house of cards. You take out some of the cards at the bottom, the thing collapses.
Well, it's kind of like the butterfly effect.
Absolutely.
It is.
Why are we looking at this? What's being done with these things?
This is a destruction of ivory, I think it's Kenya, where they're just making the statement that ivory, our elephants are worth much more to us than our ivory. I mean, an elephant can generate $1 million to $1.6 million over its lifetime out of tourism revenue. And so it's not just the elephants that are being impacted, it's the economies of Africa. And then groups like the LRA, the Lord's Resistance Army, are using ivory to finance their operations. So it's more than just the animals.
But some people will say this has been what some of these villages and have lived on, was this type of trade. So
that's not strictly true. I mean, what happens is people come in and poach and they take these elephants. And most of the local communities now recognize and realize that as tourism assets, it was like the story of Cecil the lion. The value that Cecil was generating year after year for tourists of it was way more than the hunting of one animal. So I think people are realizing now this is more about a long-term industry, and people can benefit from these animals.
What are those tusks used for?
They're used for carvings, they're used for little pieces of jewelry. I mean, some people don't even know these things are ivory when they see it. It's so small. So that's been the main usage. And really, it's all about education and awareness and making people realize that if you buy that, you're causing that chain to start happening. You're causing the poaching. So don't blame the poacher, blame the person that's buying it.
Blame the consumer, and that's why WorldAid is so important, because they're a consumer focused organization. And the thing is, you can't, I was just in the wild with these injured elephants just weeks ago, and talking to these people, and they were saying to me, Maggie, if you guys aren't out there doing consumer campaigns and decreasing demand for this, we cannot do this work on the ground alone. We can't do it.
Yeah. I think we have a little commercial that you did. Do you want to look at it?
Sure.
Acting.
There are plenty of ways to impress a beautiful woman. Buying her shark fin soup just isn't one of them. When the buying stops, the killing can too.
Oh, go from comedy to very
Well,
serious.
these are very, they're sort of very Asian-based too. I mean, I speak more to the female market. Obviously, Yao Ming or something like that, or someone like him is, they speak to different people, and I speak to different people. So for me, my message is to women, don't. It's not impressive because shark fin is a status symbol,
Right.
and ivory is a status symbol. These are all status symbols.
Yes.
People, you buy them, you ingest them, and you somehow are elevated as a person.
And you also want to go into the psychology of why is something a status symbol?
Absolutely.
Yes.
How did we arrive upon these
Thank
things?
you.
Yeah.
How-
And
yeah,
shark fin's
suffering.
bizarre. It has no flavor.
Yeah.
And it's chicken soup
And no health
basically, but yet
benefits.
it's very expensive.